Hello and welcome to Saturday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where today we've got a puzzle from the master, the man behind the Sudoku that's been viewed a mere 6.8 million times on YouTube, Ard van de Wetering. Now that puzzle was called a Sudoku with only 4 given digits, and you can see that Ard has managed to halve that in his puzzle today, and not many arrow clues either. What is going on? Well, I'll tell you in just a moment. 3 things to mention before we get onto the rules of the puzzle. First up, I did record my solve of the puzzle that Mark did in a video a couple of days ago. Mark's solve was really quite remarkable to me because he didn't allow himself to use any devious trickery. And there was some devious trickery available. So if you want to see devious trickery in your Sudoku solves, check it out. It's on Patreon right now. Also, do check out the sort of what's been dubbed the TED Talk of Sudoku setting, which Clover gave yesterday on the channel. We released it yesterday morning. The comments have been sensational. And yeah, I really recommend it, especially if you have any interest in the subject of how you set these variant Sudokus that we get to cover on the channel. And the other thing is our new podcast. It should be available now. It's the 3rd edition, and it's the one that we talk a bit about sort of puzzle and Sudoku competitions in the podcast. And yeah, I'm led to believe it should be there. If I get a chance, I will tweet about it later. Our Twitter handle is @CrypticCracking. If you want to follow us for all Sudoku-related news, right there. So that's all I've got to tell you about. Let's get on to the puzzle. It's called Boomerang, which I think is very appropriate, given that these arrows look like boomerangs to me. And we've got normal Sudoku rules applying. Digits along an arrow sum to the digit in that arrow's circle. So that means that you add up those 3 cells, and you put the total in that one. And cells separated by a knight's move in chess cannot contain the same digit. Thank goodness for that, because I don't think we would have been able to solve this if we just had 3 arrows and 2 given digits. So what does this mean? Let's imagine there's a 1 in the centre cell, and this was a chess knight. Well, it could jump to all of these cells, and therefore none of the cells outlined in blue could contain the digit 1. So just make sure when you're doing the puzzle, for example, this cell couldn't be a 7, because if it was a 7, it would be a knight's move away from that given 7. That's how to play. The way to play, I should say, is to click the link under the video. Those are the rules of how to play. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. And I suppose what we do first is we note the classic arrow trick, which is that all of these 3-cell arrows can't have a repeated digit on them because they're all in one box of the Sudoku. So the minimum we could put on these 3 squares would be 1, 2 and 3. If you add up 1, 2 and 3 you get 6. So those squares there have to be at least equal to 6. And these 2 cannot be 7, look. And I don't think there's a way of eliminating 7 from this one, but that might be wrong. So probably we've got to use geometry now. And I've seen tricks like this before. If we look at where this cell can go in box 2 of the Sudoku, it's really, really cool, because basically it can't go in those squares very simply. So these are ruled out. It definitely can't go on its own arrow, because we've still got, if we try and put this here, we've still got to add 2 more digits on before we get back to this, and you can't put 2 zeros in a Sudoku. So there's no way it goes along its own arrow. And by knight's move, look, it can't go into those 2 squares. So that cell has to mirror into that cell, and I need no excuse to colour, you know that. So those 2 have to be the same digit. And I suppose, yeah, these are symmetric. The logic is symmetrical, isn't it? Yes, it is symmetrical, actually, because you can see the boomerang is rotating round in the same direction. So we must be able to do exactly the same thing with these 2 squares, which is interesting. Now, what does that... Well, yeah, this is lovely. Look at this given 9. So this given 9 is now seeing the reflected version of the purple and the reflected version of the green. So green and purple cannot be 9 anymore. And we are getting very close to something interesting here. Are we? Let me just think about this for a moment. This must be very close to being interesting anyway. Well, hang about. What about asking where blue goes in box 4? Because by Sudoku, blue has to be in one of these 3 positions, and blue is a 6, 8, or a 9. So there's no way that blue can be on the arrow, because this is a maximum of 8, and the maximum digit an 8 arrow could have on its journey would be a 5. So I think this square has to be blue, which might be useful. Right, let's think about the same in this direction then. So where does green go? Ah, that's annoying, because green can go. Well, at least in theory, green can go in one of those 2 squares. Because if this arrow was a 9, you can put a 6 on a 9 arrow. Okay, let's check the other one. So purple has to be in one of those 3. I'm stuck here. What on earth am I meant to do? I suppose what I could... I've had 2 more thoughts actually. My first thought is that these 2 arrows here must have 1s on them, because then whether they're 6, 7 or 8, you always have a 1 on a 3-cell arrow. So 1s are in one of these 3-cell sets in each of those boxes. That's interesting, because now this cell can't be a 1. Because if that cell's a 1, you can't put a 1 anymore on this arrow because of the knight's move constraint. And that's interesting, because now, where does 1 go in box 5? And the answer is I have not got a Scooby-Doo. Well, actually, I do know it's not in that cell. So I have a little bit of a Scooby-Doo. It's in one of those 4 squares. But the critical thing, I think, is it's definitely not in row 4. And it's not in row 4 in box 4 either. So the 1 in row 4 is in one of these 2 cells, because it's obviously it's not blue, because blue is 6, 8 or 9. Okay. Now, the other thought I had was where does purple... Oh, it's not that good, is it? I was going to ask where purple went in this region. And it can go... It's either on the arrow, it's either in one of those 2 squares, or it's in one of those 2 squares. This is it. This is it. Right. We have a breakthrough. Because let's focus harder on this. Where does purple go in box 6? It's definitely not in these 4 squares, and it's not in the blue square for obvious reasons, because blue and purple must be different digits. So it's in one of these 4. Now, is it in this domino? Now, I think the answer is no, because if it is in that domino, where does it go in box 4? It can't be in the blue square, so it's forced onto the arrow where it definitely cannot go. You cannot put a 6 or an 8 on a 3-cell arrow that adds up to 6, 7 or 8. So that means that purple in box 6 must go in one of those 2 squares. And that means, of course, well, it means all sorts of things. The first thing it means is that this square is purple, because we can't put purple on the arrow, and purple is not green because green and purple are different. The second thing it means is that purple is 6 and blue is 9, because now we have to put a 6 or an 8 on a 3-cell arrow, and the only digit you could possibly put on a 3-cell arrow is a 6. So 6 is in one of those 2 squares, which means this is a 6, this is a 9 now, this is a 1, 2, 6 arrow, and I think it's all kicking off here, you know, it really is. We've got 6, 9, 9, 6. But I'm just trying to think, I've got to put 1, 2, 6 on this arrow now to make the 9 arrow work. And we know the 1 in this box is in one of those 2 squares. Yeah, so the 1 is not in those 2 squares, and this is a 1. And that also feels beautiful. So now this is not a 6. So this arrow here is a 7 or an 8. Let's put that in and see if we can detect which of those seems likely. If it's a 7, this would have to be a 2, and this would be a 1, 4 pair. Oh, lovely. Okay, it's not a 7 for a different reason. It's not a 7 because of box 2. If you put 7 in here, look what happens to where 7 goes in box 2. Well, it's either got to be on a 6 arrow, which is nonsense, or it's here, which is a knight's move away from itself. That's gorgeous. It's just incredible how much work 2 given digits and 3 boomerangs can do. Well, actually, let's pause there and note that they've got to do a lot more work because we've actually got to finish the puzzle from here uniquely, which is, I mean, it's ridiculous. Now there must be 1, 2, and 3 on the 6 arrow. The 8 arrow is either 1, 2, 5 or 1, 3, 4. Ooh. Do we know which of those is correct? I don't know. I'm noticing 2s are interesting. Ah, yes, I do. I do know, because where does 2 go in box 5? It's not here, because if you put 2 there, it's the same as when we looked at whether 1 could go here. You're eliminating 2 from every cell on the 6 arrow, so this is not 2. Now we've got a 2, 6 pair here, so those aren't 2 either. So 2 is in one of those 2 cells. Therefore, 2 cannot appear on this 8 arrow, so this 8 arrow is 1, 3, 4. Now, that means those squares are 4, 5, 7, I suppose. And these squares are 2 and 3. And we know the order because this square definitely can't be a 2. So that's a 3, that's a 2. Ah, no, that's broken. I've broken the puzzle. What have I done wrong there? Because I'm just... Oh, I know what I've done wrong. Oh, thank goodness for that. Terrible scanning is what I've done wrong. I was like, I can't put 2 or 3 in this square because it breaks the 6 arrow, but if you actually note that there cannot be a 4 in those squares because this is 1, 3, 4, you'll get further along in the puzzle. This is 2, 5, 7. Now this can't be a 3 because of this 6 arrow, so that must be a 3, so that was right, but then this can be a 4, which is better. That forces this square. Now, what do we... I suppose we know those 3 digits. They're 4, 5, and 7. 4, 5, and 7. So these squares... so this isn't 4. Oh, so 4 somehow has been eliminated from 2 of the cells on the 8 arrow. I suppose that it's because the knight's move has done some damage, I think. Now, yeah, okay, so now we can note this square can't be 1 anymore, because if that's a 1, it rules 1 out of both of those squares. It's a minor deduction, but every deduction can be important in knight's move puzzles. Okay. So these are from 1, 2... okay, yeah, so these are from 1, 2, and 3. I can see that gives me a triple in column 5. 7. Yeah, look, 7 and 9. Where do they go in box 2? They've got to be a pair. So these squares are 4, 5, and 8. and that can't be 4 by knight's move. So this square is also, if we look at, yeah, this square has to be 1, 2 or 3, and it can't, oh, this is lovely. Right, this can't be 1 by knight's move, and it can't be 2 by Sudoku, so that is a 3, which means those are not 3. This 3 and 1 get resolved. This 1 bounces in here by knight's move, so that 1 and 2 get resolved. 2 goes here. This is ridiculous. 3 is seeing that square, so 3 and 1 get resolved. Where does 1 go in column 6? It's not there anymore by knight's move. That's a 1. Where does 2 go? It must go here. Those squares are now known in the sense they are 5 and 7, I think. And there must be surely a 5. No, I've actually got no 5s in the grid, I think. So maybe 5 is not the way forward. What about... No, I've only got 1s. Ah, yes, look at this 7-9 pair. We can resolve this, well, we can resolve where the 7 goes in box 5, because this can't be a 7, because it would rule 7 out of that one by Sudoku and that one by knight's move. So the trickery is real today. This is 5, this is 7, that's 9. Now we know those squares, in theory, have to be 3, 4 and 5, I think. That can't be 5 because of this 5. And it can't be 3, so that's 4. And these squares have got to be 6, 8 and 9. I think there's certainly limitations on this one. It can't be 6 because of this. That one can't be 9. 6, 8, 9. Okay. 2 is now seeing that one. I don't know how long that's been sitting there, but I'll definitely take that. So that fixes this arrow. And we've actually fixed all of the arrows now. So at this point, we know we're looking at just a straight knight's move Sudoku. Now 9 has to go there in box 3 just by because of this 9 ruling the roost over that domino. So 9 can only live in this square. 9 is in the bottom of... Ah, this is lovely. Right, 9 is in one of these 2 squares in box 7. Can you put 9 here? No, because if you do, you can't put 9 in any of those squares. It sees those 2 by knight's move and that one by Sudoku, so that's definitely not 9, which means that's 9, that's 9, and 9... Yes, and we can. Yes, we can. There are 4 9s looking at box 9, so that's got to be a 9 in order to make that work. And we're doing okay. So how do we move forward? This is why Ard's puzzles get so many views. It's because they are, well, they're brilliant and they're very fun to solve. 1s are a little bit restricted in box 1, but probably not restricted. Ah, what about 1 in box 3? Well, I can get it down to 2 cells, which might do... No, I can get it now. Now I can get it down to 2 cells in box 1. What about 1 here? Nearly again. I can get it down to 3 cells. I will be very happy to pencil mark 3 cells in as soon as I get stuck, which is probably an imminent situation. 8 can't go there by knight's move. So, does that do anything? Yeah, that does do something if we think about where 8 can go in row 3 now. This 8 is massive because it rules out all 3 of those squares. This 8 does damage there, so actually 8 now in row 3 can only go in 1 place, which means 8 in box 7 is in one of 2 places, I think. I'm trying to find some... Ah, this is an interesting one. This 8 here sees those squares. Now this domino can't contain an 8, because if we put an 8 in either of those cells, you can't put an 8 in this domino. So, where does 8 go in box 9? It's not there, it's not there. By knight's move, it's not in those 2 squares, so it's one of these 2 squares. Now we haven't put an 8 anywhere in row 7, and the only place it can go is here. And I'm wondering whether we... Yes, we do. Look, oh, this is going to give us the 1 as well. 8's here, 8's here, 8's here. We can't put 8 there because of the knight's move, so 8 has to go to the top of the grid. That gives us this cell. And it means this square is a 1 using our pencil marks. How many 8s have we got? Oh, I see. We've got 7. We've just got these 2 dominoes left to place. But we've got a 1 here. So 1 is in one of those 2 cells. And... okay, maybe this is where we've got to stop and stare again. It's far from obvious to me where to look now, I have to say. I'm probably missing some knight's move trickery. Let's check out that. This one I don't think is close enough to see anything. 3, 5 or the 6, 8 would be very nice to resolve all this square. Ah, yeah, look, 5 is seeing that one. Good. 4, 5. So maybe the top row now, where we need 2s, 4s and 7s. Oh, that's not very kind. That really is not very kind. They don't... Ah, this 2 does see one of them. Oh, and the 7 here does see that one. But other than that, I don't think we know much about those squares. Ooh. 7 in column 3 looks interesting because of this 7. One of 2 places, I think. Bother. 7 in box 9? No. Oh dear. This has ground to something of a halt, hasn't it? Where on earth is the weak point? What am I missing? What am I missing? This domino is rules 3 and 5 out of that square. 3 was already ruled out. Ah, this square is interesting. This square is interesting because, of course, it sees all of those, and many of those are different. 1 and 9 are also not in the set. What can this be? The answer is, it can't be 1, I think it can be 2. Can't be 3, 4 or 5 or 6. Oh, bobbins, I think it can be 7, 8 and 9. 2, 7 here. Can we rule out either of those digits? Seven up there. Don't think so. I've just noticed this square can't be 7. This square can't be 5. So maybe these 3 digits are a better place to look. Ah, no. Good grief. Right, this 7 is much... Right, let's revisit 7 in box 1. Because this 7 rule is ruling things out of those 3 squares. Now, this can't be a 7, same reason. Can that little square be a 7? The answer is no. Because if that's a 7, I can't put 7 in either of those 2 squares. So 7 is vertical in box 1, which means it's not there. That's a 2. That's a 5. And maybe 5s now. Oh, lovely. Yeah, look at how powerful this 5 is. Combined with this one, we can get rid of these squares by Sudoku, but using the knight's move, we can rule all those out, so that becomes 5. 5 is in this domino now, at the bottom of column 3. I'm desperately looking to see whether it's seen by a knight's move. I don't think it is. But we can put 5, look, in row 2 now because of the knight's move, which rules 5 out of that square. So 5... no, maybe we can't do more with 5. Let's come back to this then. What is this telling us? 2 is very restricted in box 1 now. this 2 has suddenly acquired all sorts of potency. It can't go in any of those squares. So that's a 2. That gives us the 2 and the 7. This no longer is a 2. What about then 3 perhaps? Because 3's still got to appear in that box. Yes, that's gorgeous. These 3's rule 3 out of every cell apart from that one. So 3 and 1 go in. 1 has to make its home in one of 2 positions down there. Whoops, wrong pencil marks. 1's are in one of those positions. These squares are 4 and 6. Surely something is helping me with that. Yes, 4 is helping me with that one. So this is 4. That's 7. That's 4. That's 6. This is no longer 4. This square I ought to be able to do. I agree. That should be a 6. Now, this column needs a 4 in it, so that must live at the bottom. 4 is in one of those 2 squares. I've got a 4-7 pair here, it seems. That can't be a 5. Oh no, it can't be. Okay, so 5 goes there. That's quite nice. I've now got a 1-5 pair in box 9. Which sort of feels like it might be important. I don't know if it is. 2's in box 9. Yeah, look at where 2 goes. This 2 does damage to this square, so the 2 goes at the bottom. Which makes that a 2. Those squares are 3 and 7, and the 3 here tells us the order. Lovely. 7 and the 4 go in. This is a 4. This needs a 7 in it, this column. 7 has to live in one of... 7 has to be here. Sorry, I wasn't using my given 7's power. This is a 1-6 pair. And the 6 here tells us the order. So 6 goes at there, 1 goes here, 1 here, 5 here. We need a 3 in one of those squares. And this 3 tells us the order. I mean, when Ard discovered this puzzle, he must have been so thrilled. He really must have been so thrilled, because it's just an absolute joy. Start to finish, which I think is there. Yes, absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant from the master. Loved it. Just, you know, there's just so much. The start is elegant with the fact that you can colour in the 8's and the 9's. Well, you don't know what they are, but you can colour them in. And then I really liked the way you could whittle down what went onto these arrows. And from there, it's just a sequence of gorgeous deductions. The fact that you could lock the 1 into these squares, the fact you could force the 6 onto... Well, this was the key, wasn't it? Realising there had to be a high digit on this arrow. And therefore it was 1, 2, 6. We then knew the 1, and from there we could get going. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Let me know in the comments whether you enjoyed it as much as I did, and we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.